All right, so second part of what is a hominin? We previously looked at the definition and the need to understand that becoming obligate or habitual bipeds for our genetic ancestry going way back in time. You have species that go back about 6 million years. There is some data that is up closer to 7 million years today, that in order to be an efficient, obligate, or habitual biped, which means that's the comfortable locomotor pattern, that's the first choice, even though you can arm swing, knuckle walk, crawl on all fours, being a biped is our #1 strategy, that there were small genetic mutations required to maintain the center of gravity for an orthograde posture. And we looked at those 7 steps: reposition of foramen magnum, reorientation and strengthening of the vertebral column, reorientation of the pelvic bones, angle with vocabulary for the femur, locking knee joint, changes in the foot arches, and changes in the position of the hallux. So we did that previously. So now we're going to look at some other phenotypes: palate shape and non-honing chewing. Palate shape and non-honing chewing. So you're going to want these in your notes as we go. Okay, so taking a look at how we recognize fossils that are our ancestors or our genetic cousins. All of them linked together by being an obligate or habitual biped. And when we stand upright, we say that our posture is orthograde, O-R-T-H-O-G-R-A-D-E, orthograde. So we're going to take a look at chewing apparatus this morning. Okay, so 7 steps, you all, really important. This is what a section of your quiz is going to be like. And it's the big starter for all of this. So the 7 steps are just the areas. Remember, there are no bones that are deleted or angles or orientations that are deleted. There are no bones that are added. These are small changes in order to maintain that upright center of gravity that's towering over just 2 legs rather than 4. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to help show you this by using the drawing tool over the top and notating some vocabulary for you here. So let's start. In addition to being bipeds, even the earliest hominins have some slight different dental traits. What's not different is the inventory, right? Remember from our previous unit, the inventory of shapes and positions of the teeth. Remember, it starts in the beginning. We belong to a group of old world primates that have the 2, 1, 2, 3 dental formula. 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars. Our earliest ancestors, of course, are going to be the same. And today, the biggest change is that our teeth are very tiny and fragile, but we still have 2, 1, 2, 3. So what has changed, and how do we talk about this with our college level of vocabulary for university learners? Okay, so firstly, the term hominoid here. I'm going to get a little bit more serious color of pen. Okay, this one, hominoids. See this part here for your notes? Oids. Oid means apes. Okay, let's see, I've got somebody in our room over here. No, you don't see that note. Okay. All right, hominoids. Be careful with this term because when you're looking at questions, there'll be hominin, that's a biped, hominoids, apes. And remember, the big difference then is apes are not obligate bipeds. They are, in Africa, knuckle walkers. And since the roots of being a biped are African, then the comparison is with knuckle walking apes. All right, so if they've got the same dental formula, what are we looking at? And how can you put that in your notes real quickly here and make that have, make it be done really quickly for review. So here we go. Make this a little bit thicker. So what we've got here with hominoids, and as you look at the vocabulary as we go through, if we take a look at how the teeth are aligned, and I don't want to use this one. How the teeth are aligned in the jaw, we can see that it's early. There we go again. Right through the center of the teeth. The teeth here are in a very parallel tooth row. See how it's about the same distance here to here as from here to here, and the teeth in the front, we'll come back to the gap later, the teeth in the front are also fairly flatly aligned. So for sketching in your own notes, we're gonna look a bit like this one, and we get a slight little arch up here, and come back to it with a small gap. This is hominoid. Right, next, and I'll change color. For our early ancestors, in chapter 10, right? So in your hominin review sheet, that's pages 1 and 2. Pages 1 starts with Auroran, goes through the earlier Australopiths, and then the second page is also early hominoids, or not hominoids, right? Hominins, early bipeds, and they are known as robust or Paranthropus. If you have that sheet with you, it's or open right now, just take a look and follow along as we go through this. All right, now when we're looking at these, this is interesting because we've got more width here at the back than up here in the front. So when we look at these, we can see that this angles slightly. Not a lot, slightly. So we're a little bit wider at the back, but certainly not the rounder arch that we have. So this is slightly angling out. And then we've also got then here towards the front, starting to round a little bit with either no gap at all or almost no gap. So if I flip this over so that the front is to the bottom, you'll see something that's going to look a little bit like this. You're also going to see in these that comparatively for all of the earliest ancestors, their teeth are larger than ours. They're eating all raw foods, so their teeth have to be stronger, which is a good thing. Now for us, choose one other color here. Let's do this one. It'll probably stand out pretty well. For us, what we've got is this nice rounded arch, right? Real wide at the back compared to the front. So if we do this one upside down as well, over here, we've got the nice arch shape, wider at the back. All right. So This is a biped. So this is hominin. Let me go to text here. This is and we'll see this begins about 2 million years ago. A little bit more. I'll put about 2.5 here. And this one, again, all right. So hominoid, early hominin for this one, and genus Homo, or modern humans. No teeth are lost. The teeth have pretty much the same shapes. They're in the same position, but we've got some other things going on as to the angle and orientation. So I'm going to turn this off right now. So let's look at the specific vocabulary for this. So palate shape again, these quick draws that you did, palate shape. First one, U-shaped. U-shaped here is hominoid. So U-shaped is hominoid. It's why I wanted you to draw it, because when they're talking out the parallel slides and then the gap here, I don't know that I would have said that it was necessarily perfectly U-shaped, but U-shaped, right? Two flat sides and then the connector incisors with a little gap. So this is gonna be the term that goes with U-shaped hominoids. All right, next one. Intermediate. Intermediate, you all? Which one's intermediate? Early hominins. So the one here in the middle. And make it go to a different color so it's a little easier to tell it's not that one. So intermediate, this is intermediate. This one, slightly wide at the back, very large teeth, not real wide like ours. And the other thing is, for these, you're going to see that the bone is heavier, but really we're looking at the line of the teeth, the way they go. And the last term, parabolic. And parabolic, ta-da, is U. That's a parabolic. This is a parabolic. Think of the arch in St. Louis, a parabola, an arch. Okay, those are your three vocabulary terms for describing this. What you need to be able to do is know that U-shaped refers to hominoid palate. Intermediate, early hominin palate. What are the early hominins? Pages 1 and 2 on your hominin review sheet. In chapter 10, and parabolic, modern humans. That will be the third page in your hominin review sheet, and everything in 11 and 12. So if it has the genus Homo, then it has a parabolic palate or arch. You might see, the same way when we were looking at dental formulas, you might see a question that is asking about this with an image. You might see it with just with these terms, or you might see the image and ask which group does it belong to, but that will be the options there. Moving on. So what is non-honing chewing? And how will we recognize it in our class activities? And what does it say about our ancestors leading to you? So we've got a phrase here that's part of your vocabulary, non-honing chewing. That would be versus honing chewing. The vocabulary term diastema, and there'll be one more as we go through. Okay, looking here again, and I'll pull up a little sort of a highlighter tool here. Let's see, this one, yeah, that'll probably work for this one here. Okay, so in this image to the left, we see this one right here. We see this one, and you can see 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars here, and we don't see the rest of it, but we do see that there's a noticeable gap here, and we do see that the incisor, the canine teeth, are projecting forward a little bit, but that they're very big at the root, that they have a much wider dimension at the root. For primates, we do not have particularly spectacular canines in terms of length or what we use them for. We use them for primarily indicating mood and facial expressions. But when the root area is really wide, then in order to close the jaw all the way, then something known as a diastema has to be present. So let me undo this one. So this here, the gap, is a diastema. We're not learning about any other types of gaps because this isn't a dental health class, right? But actually it is still called a diastema if, let's say, for instance, a person has incisors that don't meet real closely in the front, which is considered super attractive in lots of phases of human culture, and in others, maybe something that you want to get fixed. It's all good. So that's a diastema. So who has a diastema? Hominoids have a diastema. And hominoids, you all? Apes. So we find a fossil maxilla or mandible with very, very thick or wide canines and a very noticeable diastema. They're always going to go together. Then we're looking at an early primate, but we're not looking at a hominin. We're not looking at an obligate or habitual biped for this one. So that's a diastema. Now, with a thicker or heavier canine, and then with that diastema, what's it for? It's so that they can close their mouth all the way down. Because the upper and the lower are the same, that those teeth, as the animal goes through its life, they rub on each other. And it will wear down the interior, not really the exterior surface, the interior leading edge of it a bit on the teeth, which is what's called honing. Honing here, so this one. So honing. So if there's a noticeable diastema and a heavier at the root, at the base canine, then that is going to wear these teeth into a little bit more noticeable angle during life in a manner that's called honing. Now, for ancestors and species like us today who do not have So here's 1, 2, so those are your incisors. Here's the canine, right? The root size of it's just the same as all the rest of the teeth. It's not super, super long. When we're young, these all have a little bit more of a fine edge to them than as we age, because the enamel wears down during their lifetime because we're chewing things, especially if you eat high fibrous foods. So with the non-honing chewing, right, there's no diastema here, so we don't have the rubbing on the back over here. What happens is that our wear comes on the edges or the tips, and that's called apical wear, like on the apex, on the tip. So this will be tip wear. That's going to be early hominins, and especially the ones that we're most familiar with, that we have the most data for, genus Australopithecus, and the robust Australopithecus or Paranthropus group, and then of course anything with genus Homo on there. So in this case then, when they're biting into things, they get kind of a shearing or cutting kind of way to the bite versus grinding, and ours is entirely grinding, which is why the tips and edges of our teeth wear down. And then this phrase, male to male aggression. This is about for this change here in apes, in the great apes, is really more about showing a particular facial expression to exhibit dominance. But do they kill each other with bites? Not really. And as you already learned, gorillas, like in this image, are completely vegetarians. They don't hunt any other type of animal species for food. Chimps occasionally do kill other animals for food, and sometimes chimps will kill monkeys for food, but really this doesn't have any large role to play in that behavior. Okay, so non-honing chewing. So let's look at this. Oh, I'm going to, I need to pull this up, get rid of everything so I don't have anything getting in the way here. Okay, we're going to look down here with a little bit here real quickly. So here in an image down towards the bottom of the screen here, you're seeing this one. See how this is straight right here, straight right here, got a diastema, right? See the parallel or U-shaped tooth row? So hominoid, right? This is an ape. You can also see from our previous lesson that the foramen magnum, here's the occipital bone, that the foramen magnum isn't centered, it's angled more to the back. So there's 2 lines of evidence that this skull is not a biped, that it's going to be some form of primate quadruped. We can see that, go up from here, we can see the diastema here. We can also see it here on the lower. You really see it easily here on the darker one, here. And you can see there's a little bit of space here. And that's so that they can close all the way down because they have those thicker, a little bit more prominent teeth there. Okay, let me clear all this. All right, close that. So here's a quick little video. There's no sound to it, just watch. I love this one. Here we're looking, and it's easy to see, right? In this gorilla, we see the parallel or U-shaped tooth row. See how straight it is to the back? Canines with a very large measurement right up there at the jaw. So, and then the diastema right here. So let's look. Let's look at him again. One more time, watch. Again, as he's got his mouth open, you can see his canines, see how they fit together. And now look at the eyebrows. Lifts up and looks towards the camera. This individual knows that, and this is a silverback, so a dominant male in a living in a zoo in Germany. He knows that he's being filmed. He knows he's being watched. So is it likely that he did this because he was sleepy and relaxed? Nope. That is showing my territory, my group, my space. I'm in charge, I'm dominant, back off, looks to maintain it. So those teeth are not there for killing things or getting dinner. They're there to establish the normal working order in the social group. All right, I love that video. Okay, one last couple images, and then we'll be done looking at this dental part of the lesson. Okay, again, diastema is allowing the jaw to close. So will there be a diastema in early species that don't have that real predominant canine? And the answer is not really. It'll be either super minimal or not there at all because they don't need it. But if they've got this size tooth, then there has to be a diastema. Otherwise, they can't close, which means they couldn't use the molars to grind their teeth. So again, we'll be looking at, in your notes, we'll be looking at parallel. You can see it here. Parallel tooth row or U-shaped. That's hominoid. We might be looking at one that angles out a little bit more, like you can see here. And then almost missing or entirely missing diastema. That's going to be early hominin. That's called intermediate. So no diastema, no gap. And this is non-honing chewing. The honing happens when the back of this tooth is rubbing against the big canine on the other opposite jaw. And then you have, right, this, the big wide arch, parabolic. You are parabolic, and that will be anatomically modern. That means genus Homo. And genus Homo, we find fossils that date to more than 2 million years ago for now. So, but this is leading towards it, right? This is getting into that zone already a little bit here, and this one not so much. It's just going to be parallel. Okay, so you might see a photo or a drawing or in words. Go ahead.
Just to be sure, I noticed that B is missing a tooth. Is it missing a tooth, or it's one of the incisors?
Oh, yes, because this is showing. That's really good. Good observation. Yes, this is showing a drawing of a ancient fossil, Australopithecus afarensis, which means that it's in the neighborhood of over 3 million years old, perhaps, for that one. So yeah, they just didn't recover that tooth. Good catch there for that one. But yes, they do have the same in that, the same number. And here's one more thing we want to show you going forward. See how in modern humans, in this drawing, it shows the chin here, angling kind of forward, further forward than the rest of everything else. This does not happen until exactly us. So no question on your quiz or your exam for Unit 4 is going to have the answer that they have a projecting chin. Instead, what you're going to see in all of them is that there is no chin. This angles back. We have some vocabulary for that, but we're not going to work on that today. I'll work on that with you next week for this one. So no chin. The answer to all of these early ancestors. So page 1 and page 2 and almost all of page 3 of the hominin review sheet, no chin. This little thing coming forward is a mutation that happened really recently and that we did not inherit from our ancestors. And so what's coming down here? Do we have something else? I'm having trouble getting it to stop making. Let's see what's down here. Nope. See if I can get anything else to go away. turn that off and see if this one came from down here. Okay, so one last picture to end this, and then we'll stop on the record here. So yes, so here we go. Now you're looking at, this is one of those fun trail camera images. This is a really famous one that popped up all over on the internet because this primate, this is a monkey, an African monkey, came up to the camera and put its face really close, which makes it look a little bit distorted, although these do have a fairly long mandible here, but you can see the diastema, the thicker canines at the bottom, and you can see that they would need to have that space right there in order to close. But you can also see that they're going to get, when they're chewing, a little bit of honing on the interior edge of these canines as they brush by each other. Because when we close our mouth, sometimes we're closing it, mostly because we're chewing things. So you're going to get a little grinding back and forth on that one. All right.